Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We'll just give it a moment to let everybody join, but I'm so grateful to see you all. And yeah, turn your cameras on. It's always nice to see people. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Meenakshi, Pritesh. I know it's not Pritesh. It was nice to see you from Saturday. Thanks for joining. Um, yeah, thank you so much, Noor, Saroj. Harmony, Lisa, nice to see you. Thanks for joining on. And yeah, thanks for coming on Wisdom Talk. I know there's a lot of other events happening tonight as well. So thank you guys for making it to this one. I'll just give it one more minute and then we will get started with today's session on relationships. Very excited to be sharing this one with you today. And yeah. So So our hosts are a bit delayed today. Trisha and Saj are not able to be here, so just got me. What we can do is start with a quick prayer, and yeah, and then we can get straight into relationships today. But yeah, let's start with a quick prayer. So what we normally do, for those of you joining for the first time, is we do a gratitude prayer. A gratitude prayer helps us become more centered and allows us to access the knowledge in a deeper space. So we just thank all the people that are able to connect us to this knowledge. And you can think of someone that you might have in your life that's helped you connect a bit better, like that. So yeah, thank you so much. What we'll do, just gonna, okay. So here we go. Let's begin. Om. Timidantasya Dhananjala Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivastari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, welcome to today's session. It's all about relationships. We all have to have relationships in this world, whether we like it or not. And yeah, today we're going to dive a bit deeper into the idea of relationships. Yeah, when we're looking, what are we actually all looking for in life? Maybe want to ask this question, and you can write it in the chat. And some of you might feel like it's quite an obvious answer. But what are we all really looking for in life? What is the essence of everything we do? What is the motive that we all have? What is it that we all want?
Peace and happiness.
Peace and happiness. Thank you. You got it straight away. Yeah. Peace and happiness. Peace, love, and happiness. Yeah, you guys are amazing. Yeah, peace and happiness. We're all looking for peace and happiness. We're all looking to feel fulfilled. We're all looking to feel centered. And we're all looking for that. That thing in our life that keeps us happy, that keeps us content. Now I'm just going to share my screen. I've got some slides, so I'm just going to share them with you today. And you can have your notepads ready and pens as well, and take some notes if you like, and you can benefit. But also, we're going to keep this quite interactive as well. So yeah, you guys can connect with me. Can everyone see that okay? Is my screen okay? Is it visible? Is it not? There's no blockage in there, or is it okay? Got a thumbs up from everyone? Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Louise. Okay. So they did a study in Harvard University, and what they looked at was what is the most critical thing that keeps us happy? What is the most essential thing that makes us happy? And funnily enough, it is the topic we're talking about today. It's relationships, not just relationships, positive relationships. The Harvard University, it came out with this study over 85 years, and it showed that positive relationships helps us be happier, be healthier, to live longer, and to have deeper connections. And when we have this positive relationship, things in our life feel like more and more in line, more and more in tune, and we feel more and more connected. It's actually the beauty of having positive relationships in our life. And the funny thing is that when we have good relationships at home, when we have good relationships at work, the sun is shining. It feels like the sun is shining. It feels like things are great. It feels like everything we're doing is going really well. So imagine if you've got a good relationship at home and things are going well. And when you're going into work, naturally, you're going in with a better headspace. You're going in better clarity. You feel better. But actually, the same is true if you have a bad relationship at home. So if things aren't going well at home, things aren't going as to plan, you're having tensions at, whoever it is you have relationships with at home, then things feel difficult at work as well, and things feel difficult at home. But then also you can say the same about your relationships at work and whatever it is that you do outside. When you have bad relationships there, it affects your things at home. It affects your mood. It affects your wellness. It affects your well-being. It affects things. It affects the relationship actually even at home, because you feel strained. You feel stressed. You feel things are difficult. So really what we're talking about is, when we talk about relationships, we can't actually talk about it in a single form, like A relationship here or B relationship here. We have to look at it holistically, because all of our relationships impact everything we do in our life. And what we're going to try and dive deeper into is, what does the Bhagavad-gita say about relationships, and how do we navigate these relationships in our day-to-day, and how do we navigate that relationship in our life? Now I'm going to do an activity in the chat. I just want you guys to rate what you feel your relationships are like right now out of 10. Where do you think your relationships are right now? Like, how do you feel your connections, your relationships? How would you rate them out of 10? You can just put a number in the chat, and you can be honest. We keep it in this chat where we're being honest, and we're just sharing. Yeah, so whatever you feel is where you're at. Okay, so some different numbers: 7, 8. Okay. Yeah, keep sharing. Just share wherever you feel, whatever number you feel you're at. Roma 6. Okay. Yeah, we all have a different number where we're at right now in how satisfied we feel where our relationships are. Amazing. 9, that's good. No 10 yet. Maybe we can get people to 10 with today's session. 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, depending on different people. Yeah, amazing. I like that answer. With different people, we feel that we have different relationships. There's a saying, right? It takes 2 to tango. or it says, it takes two hands to make a sound, right? So we often feel that relationships are sometimes not just dependent on us, but actually it's also dependent on the other person. Maybe the other person, you feel like, if ever maybe you have a bad relationship and you're thinking in your mind right now, I feel like the other person should be there listening to this lecture as well. We're going to start with the first relationship. What is the most important relationship? Actually, before we go into that, let's just understand the word relationships and how it relates to the Bhagavad-gita. So in the Bhagavad-gita, it talks about there's three divisions of knowledge. And the first division is sambandha. Sambandha means relationships. Okay, so when we talk about relationships, the Sanskrit is sambandha. That's the actual word. And that is the starting point of the Bhagavad-gita. We move on to then abhidaya, which is practice, and prayojana, which is perfection. What we're just going to focus on, tune into a little bit, is sambandha, our relationship. And we can dive deeper into that. But it's an amazing word, sambandha, because it's a universal word connecting us and all our relationships that we have, including our relationship with God and including the relationship with the material nature. What is the most important relationship in your life? Maybe you guys can write it on the chat or maybe guess the answer. There you go, Pritesh. With yourself. Sorry, I have to leave. Okay. Yeah. You guys are like expert with your children. Okay. Parents, with God, one with yourself. Okay, amazing. With myself and God, kids. Okay, great. Parents. So yeah, so a lot of you got the answer that I was looking for, and that is the relationship with yourself. Good relationships start at that point, is the relationship that you have with yourself. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you three S's. So we have sambandha. Sambandha is the word, Sanskrit word. And I'm going to give you three different S's that helps you with connecting to better relationships in life. Now, these three S's, the first S, like you guys mentioned, the most important relationship with yourself is the self-realization relationship. How is my relationship with myself? Like I mentioned, we often feel like it takes two to tango. We often feel like actually, relationships is about my relationship with others. But in reality, it starts from within. It starts from your relationship with yourself. It's amazing that you guys are all on this call, taking up your Thursday evening with this session, because you want to work on your relationship with yourself. You're on a journey of self-realization, whatever reason that might have been sparked, but you're on that process. And when we want to have better relationships with others, we start with trying to identify that personal relationship, that internal relationship that we have. A lot of the times they say, a lot of the change that we make, be the change that you want to see in this world. So I think that's a quote by Gandhi. So we start with that point. And the three S's I said I was going to mention, and this is the Bhagavad-gita's formula of relationships. So the first one is self-realization, that relationship with yourself. The second one is selflessness. And the third one is sensitivity. Now I'm going to unpack each of these three things. But if you're going to leave with anything today, remember this three-step formula: self-realization, selflessness, and sensitivity. I'm trying to make all the sessions very practical and very systematic. And I'm sure Keshav Maharaj will like this as well. So we're trying to make it easy for everyone to understand and remember. But yeah, here's a three-step formula for having better relationships. And if you can grasp these three things, hopefully you can see that change in your life and change that mood, have that mood in your life as well. If you think of any questions, put them on the chat, because I know there might be some good questions coming up with the relationships. So yeah, don't be shy. Just put them on the chat as and when you start thinking of them. So the first relationship we're going to look at is the self-realization. So what is my relationship with myself? And broadly speaking, we can break it down into three categories. The first category of relationship with yourself, it starts with the external, the relationship with yourself, and that's the body. What is my relationship like with my body? You know, we've been given this body. We're very lucky to be having having this ability to experience these things that we're experiencing through the body, but it means it comes with a responsibility. How are we treating our body? How are we looking after ourselves? And how are we then utilizing whatever we've been given day to day? So how is my relationship with my body? And I can ask you guys these questions, and you can write it in the chat if you want to, or you can write it in your notes, but ask yourself this question. Sorry, I literally came up with these slides. There's a typo. It's like an hour ago. How is my diet? What is my relationship like with my diet? Maybe you guys can write on the chat. What is your relationship like with your diet? Once I said to my niece that I'm gonna go on a diet, and she said to me, "You said you're going on you're going on a diet every Monday, and I never see a change. It's not working, obviously." So we all have this relationship with diet. Yeah, what is your relationship with your diet? Goodness in most areas, but sugar is weakness. Thank you, Lisa. Better, eating more vegetables and nuts helps. Louise, mostly good. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes we often don't realize how important our diet actually plays a part. So in the Gita, it talks about, and Vedic philosophy, it talks about having food in the mode of goodness, sattvic food. You know, they say you are what you eat. So when you have sattvic food, when you have food in the mode of goodness, which is generally like vegetarian food, healthy food, food that is light, that helps you in different ways, yeah, that is better for you. And actually it helps your consciousness. It actually helps your mind, and it helps you with different things. So if we have a good diet, our mind is more connected and more focused. I don't know if you've heard this saying, but and I actually start to realize this now, and I never really thought this was actually true. But I think Srila Prabhupada, he writes in his books that the reason why we have so much war in this world is because of the animal slaughter and animal killing that we see. Now, like, it's a bit of a strange thing to put these two things together. How does like killing of animals lead to the slaughter, to more war that we have in this world? Like, how are the two things correlated? But when we think about it, you know, from a neutral perspective and take a step back, when we see the consumption of meat, when we actually have these kind of foods which are tamasic, it actually aggravates the mind. It actually aggravates our consciousness and how we behave and how we react, how we respond to the things. So when we see, a big consumption of meat, we see actually people's consciousness is in that plane of ignorance. So then they become more aggressive, they become more angry. So you can see like, okay, diet does actually play a part, and it can, let's say, hone it down to our personal aspect. When we're eating well, our consciousness is better. So we react differently. And most of this is maybe a lot of what you know already, but I just thought I'd touch on it. Exercise is really important. Like physicality, yoga. Some of you might are good yoga-ites, yoginis and yoga people in the group. So yeah, how good is your exercise and how good is my sleep? We sometimes neglect how important sleeping is, and it's taking care of our body, even our health. Like sometimes we just have to listen to our what is my body telling me? Does it need to rest? Does it need time to itself? Does it need time to relax? What is it that my body is telling me? So yeah, what is my relationship like with my body, and how am I looking after myself? So this is kind of the first thing for you to start introspecting. What is my relationship like with my body, and how am I trying to sustain all these different things that are there and that are happening? This is a quote from the Bhagavad-gita. Maybe somebody could just unmute themselves and read this out for me.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, please go ahead.
There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system.
Thank you so much for reading that. So yeah, here Krishna is telling Arjuna the importance of regulation with our sleep, with our eating, with our exercise. We have to try and find that balance. We have to try and find that regulation. And once we have that good regulation, it can help us practice all these other things that we're mentioning. Okay, now you probably guessed it. What's the second relationship with ourself? And that is the mind. We had a session last week, I think, wasn't it? Last week on the mind with our lovely Dr. Chetna Chitti Shakti, and she was sharing about how the mind is sometimes very difficult to navigate, and how we can navigate the mind and harnessing the power of our mind as well. Now, when we talk about our mind, we can narrow it down to like your emotions. What are my emotions? How am I feeling? I don't know if you've heard of this thing called the 5 love languages. Maybe some people have and some people haven't. But essentially, it talks about different ways of us feeling fulfilled. And sometimes we need other people to respond to us in these love languages. It could be acts of service. So we want some people to do things for us, and that's how we feel loved and recognized. It could be receiving a gift, physical touch, quality time. So you can see there's different areas that this 5 love languages covers. And if maybe you guys can do this as an exercise, just take a minute to yourself and ask yourself this question: what do I need from others? From a relationship, what is it that I need from others? And it could be one of these things, or it could be something else. But generally, we say probably one of these things. But yeah, just ask yourself, what do I need from others? And if you feel like inspired, you can also write it on the chat as well. Let's take a moment. Okay, so hopefully you've filled that out. Okay, need. So I talked about, you answered that question, what do I need from others? Now try to think, and it might be that it takes you a bit of time and for you to go away and think of that. But what is the deeper need? There is usually attached to whatever it is we feel we need from others. For example, it could be words of affirmation. However, when we go deeper into it, it means we want some reassurance. We want some self-worth. It's something that we just have to kind of go a bit more deeper into. What is the deeper need? Okay, great. So you guys are all putting something in the chat and writing some stuff down as well. So if you're still writing, yeah, please turn your cameras on and I can see who's writing and who's not. Okay. So interestingly enough, when we look at the deeper need, what is the deeper need? We can actually flip that and ask ourselves this next question. How can I fill my own cup? So that deeper need that you try to think of, how can you now feel and think of fulfilling your own cup, fulfilling your own needs? And it could be part of one of these 5 love languages, or it could be, something that you might have just mentioned on the chat. How can I love myself? How can I, whatever it is that deeper need is, how can I fulfill it myself? And, it could be, time to yourself, reflecting on positive things that you've done. It could be gifts for yourself. It could be quality time with yourself. Physical touch could be a massage, or I don't know, something that's relaxing, or time, sleeping or exercising, acts of service, maybe doing something that's for yourself. How can I fulfill my own cup? How can I do things in my day-to-day, or and putting it into my routine that fulfills my own self? So Navjeet's put by act of service, by having nature of gratitude. Thank you so much for sharing, lovely. Walking in nature, rest and good diet. V, meditating, journaling and practicing gratitude. Amazing. Thank you for sharing these. Yeah, if you think of any more, and maybe you can go away and take these questions with you. But key question I want to ask yourself is these 3 things. What do I need from others? What is the deeper need that I need to recognize within myself? And how can I now navigate that by fulfilling my own cup, by fulfilling my own need? Yes, we will need other people. Yes, we need them to respond to us in the ways we feel we want to be loved. But actually, we can start by trying to do that for ourselves and creating a habit that creates that, where we're fulfilling our own internal needs and not depending on people external to us. So the mind, and this is an important aspect of the relationship with yourself, because the relationship with your mind can make such a big difference. And we talk about the mind in the Bhagavad-gita a lot, and here's a famous statement from Krishna on the mind. Maybe somebody can just unmute and read this next passage from the Gita out.
I can do that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jade.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Bhagavad-gita 6.5. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, our relationship with our mind can move from being our best friend to our enemy. And we want to try, if we want to have better relationships, we have to try and make our mind our best friend, and move in that direction where the mind is working for us. Like last few weeks ago, we discussed about habits, and things came up about how we can harness our mind in trying to become more stable and stable in our habits as well. Now, where they fell short? Okay, so when they looked at what makes somebody happy, what is the most successful people, and what is it that which of these people are the happiest? Before, they used to think that people with high IQs, they used to be the happiest people, like all these geniuses. But they surely realized that it actually didn't make them happy. They were actually like not the happiest. Then this thing came out about emotional quotient. People with good emotional quotient, they understand how to navigate relationships, how to navigate emotions, understanding people's emotions. And yes, they were a bit better. But what it actually came down to, when they looked at what is it which type of quotient that made people the happiest, and that was actually SQ, spiritual quotient. So why am I saying that? The next and most important relationship with yourself is my relationship with my soul, my relationship with myself. So we did the body, we did the mind, and now we go down to the soul. What is my relationship with the soul? And we all have these questions, and obviously you guys are amazing. You're on this call for the Bhagavad-gita and learning these questions, trying to identify all these difficult questions like, who am I? What is my identity? This is like the first part of the Bhagavad-gita. Krishna explains this knowledge. What is my identity? Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Why have I come here? What am I doing here? And the last question is, what is my future? So when we look at these three questions, these are all like existential confusion questions. But asking yourself these questions and trying to get the answers, it's a starting point of navigating everything else. The Bhagavad-gita starts with these questions. It starts with understanding these basic, very important questions, to understand what is my relationship, sambandha, with my soul and the people around me, and answering these questions. Why am I here? Who am I, and what's my future? Now, this is something that Arjuna does in the second chapter. So hopefully most of you know like a bit about the Bhagavad-gita. But in the second chapter, when Arjuna is confused, his mind is everywhere, he basically asks Krishna these questions. He surrenders to Krishna. Maybe somebody could read this nice verse out from Arjuna speaking.
I can do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's go into the next verse. Okay, maybe somebody else would like to read this one. Any volunteers?
I can read that.
Yeah.
Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. The soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
Thank you so much, Louise, for reading that out. Yeah. So basically, we see in these two passages. The first one is Arjuna is asking Krishna, like, I'm confused. I don't know what's going on in my life. I need help. Okay. I don't know my identity. I don't know what to do. I don't know whether I'm fighting, if I should fight, shouldn't fight. My mind is all over the place. Like, please help me. Please instruct me. And in the same way, we have to first start at that point when we have to try and find out what is my relationship with my soul. We have to come to this point where we're confused and we actually have to turn to something that can help us to identify and answer these questions. So obviously, Arjuna turns to Krishna. What better person to turn to? In the same way, we have to turn to someone, or we have to turn to something to get that answer. And we're here, we're together, we're trying to understand the knowledge of the Bhagavad-gita, but together we're trying to harness what are these questions. The idea of having a teacher or guru or using these books as wisdom is a starting point for finding out what is my relationship with myself. And when you understand that, when you understand your identity, you can then see how everything else is put into perspective. So once I know who I am, who my identity is, how I relate to this world, I can then see how I interact with everything else around me. Until you get this sorted, until you're on this journey of understanding this process, things are hard, things become difficult. You're not able to be at peace. You're always going to have these existential confusions, these questions, and you're not going to be able to relate to the things around you in the correct way. Because when we realize in this text, what Krishna is saying is, he's saying that there was never a time when none of us existed. So he's talking about us being eternal. He's talking about the soul. He's saying we're not this body. Our true identity is not of the external identity, but it's the internal identity. And at death it passes on, but a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Now, before I go on to the next segment, we all have different roles. So we're just kind of harnessing onto that identity and that we're the soul. And before I move on to the next point, we all have different roles in our day. And when we're navigating our relationships, some of you are mothers, some of you are fathers, some of you are children, you have parents, you are workers, you have an occupation, some of you are volunteers for charities. So you all have a different role that you play within the day, which requires you to navigate different relationships, right? So you're basically connecting with different people in different roles, putting yourself in different shoes. It's like Shakespeare said, everybody is an actor on a stage with different entrances and exits. They play their role and they come and they go. But what we have to realize and understand is, even though you're playing all these different roles, ultimately your identity is you are the soul. Your identity is that you're a spirit soul and you're not this body, and you're playing these different roles into your life. And when we hear from chapter 2, is we have two duties. We're Sanatana Dharma, our eternal duty, and our spiritual, our occupational duty. But our Sanatana Dharma is our soul and identity. And one really practical and good way of connecting with that identity to navigate all the other roles is the practice we have in the morning. Our morning meditation, our 5 a.m. club, right? Because what that does is it helps you disconnect from your whatever roles you're playing in the daytime. It helps you take a step away from whatever it is that you're going to be navigating and facing. And by doing that, by taking a step away, you're able to better play whatever role it is that you're going to be during the day, because you're taking that time away. You're taking that time away to connect with your real identity as the soul. But when you understand that you're the soul, you also appreciate that everybody else is also a living entity. Everybody else is also a soul. And they're also going through the same problems, emotions, etc. But just taking that space away, that being in that 5 a.m. club, and it could be joining, doing meditation. We have a morning meditation club. I can see some of you on there that join in the mornings. Lisa, sometimes Louise, some of you else are on there as well. But we take that time away to then help us connect with that identity, and we use like mantra meditation to remind us that, okay, we're in this body and we want to have a connection with God, and actually we're trying to harness that eternal relationship with God. We're trying to build that relationship, whatever we have, connecting with the divine. So then when we can connect with the divine, like, so I understand I'm the soul and I'm connecting with the divine, I can now navigate all my other relationships in my day. Any info on the club? Yeah, Meenakshi, yeah, 5 a.m. club. We have a morning meditation club. So you can join that. But there's also other things that you can do as well. So it includes like gratitude journals. Some people exercise, but generally speaking, meditation is one of the best ways of doing that. Some people do yoga as well, and it's a mixture of these things. And it's likened to one of my favorite analogies is when the archer brings back his bow, it feels like counterintuitive. He's moving the bow backwards, but when he shoots, it's equally as penetrating. In the same way, when we take our time out in the morning, we're taking time out from the world, we're moving backwards. Seems like we're not doing anything, but actually what we're doing is utilizing that space, and we can be more and more impactful. Okay, so the next one is selflessness. So being selfless, you can see here, there's different qualities, and the Gita talks about this. There's different qualities that we have, and what it talks about is the most important quality that we can have is called tataksha lakshan in Sanskrit. Primary quality that helps us to have all the other good qualities is being selfless. So when we have a mood of being selfless, humility, patience, kindness, empathy, all of these things are naturally come about, naturally qualities that will resonate and will emerge within us. The same is true for the opposite. When we're selfish, envy, greed, anger, etc., all of these demonic qualities come about. So we hear this, I think, in chapter 16 about the selfish and the selfless qualities of someone. And two qualities I wanted to mention that we can really focus on when we have the mood of being selfless. The first one, actually three qualities. I'm going to share three qualities with you that we can move to or think about into harnessing how we can navigate our relationships. Selfless being the center point, starting with being selfless. So there are divine and demonic qualities. And we have, each of us has, it talks about in the Gita, each of us has both of these, right? It's almost like we have like a devil on our left shoulder and an angel in our right shoulder. And one is telling us to do one, and another one is, sometimes they give that analogy of a dog, a good dog and a bad dog. Now, which dog wins? The good dog or the bad dog? Like, what determines which one wins? Maybe you guys can answer this in the chat. What determines which dog wins? Or you can shout out as well if you want. There you go. The one you feed the most. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much. You guys are like expert. I feel like every question I've asked, you've got it straight away. Yeah, whichever dog you feed is the one that's gonna grow the most. And if we look at both of these, selfless and selfish, whichever one we kind of focus our minds on and attention to, that is the one that is going to emanate all these other qualities that we have that surround it. Now, here's one of my favorite verses from the Gita. Maybe somebody could read this one out. Any volunteers unmute themselves?
I can do.
Yeah.
The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater.
Thank you so much. Yeah. When we have that equal vision, when we have that vision of, regardless of where somebody is from, whatever caste, creed, sex, anything, humble sage, the Gita is recommending that sees with equal vision by virtue of true knowledge. When we have that true knowledge, when we connect with our identity, when we connect with the Bhagavad-gita, we can start to see everything around us with equal vision, and we can build on having this selfless quality. And when we practice selfless qualities, we want to have these three things that we can work on to become selfless. The first one is kindness. So they say, you can do one kind act a day. There is I think there's a book like that as well, like one kind act a day. Now, sometimes we think we're kind, or we try to be kind, but we can't be kind because of X, Y, and Z and all these reasons. But actually, they say it's like a muscle. You can actually practice kindness actively. So like you go to the gym and you actively practice, like running and weightlifting or whatever. In the same way, you can day-to-day practice kindness. And what happens when you practice kindness on a regular basis? What is the result? You become kind. When you practice kindness, you become kind. So even though we might not have that quality, or we all have that quality, but even though it might not be at the forefront, or we feel like it's not at the forefront, by practicing it every day, we become that. And actually so important, because when we're navigating relationships with other people, it's really important that it's very simple, but we just remember just to be kind to others. By being kind, it can help us navigate our relationships on a much deeper and better level. And we're naturally showing that compassion through an act, by being kind to somebody else. The second one is empathy. Empathy is amazing because it's the only quality that we have as humans that one of the qualities that animals don't have and we have is empathy. Being able to read another person's emotions, being able to put yourself in another person's shoes, understanding what another person is going through. That is such an important aspect of good relationship, is empathy. Listening to others, understanding them. Sometimes listening doesn't mean just listening to the words, but listening to watching their body language, looking at their eyes, looking at their actions. Empathy is a difficult one to practice. It can be difficult to practice, but the more we practice empathy, the better relationships that we can have, the better heart we can have to then connect with other people. And last but not least is humility. having humility. When we're humble, when we put our egos first, and then we can really truly be selfless. I remember I was picking my niece up from school, like I think it was yesterday. And I don't usually do like this pick up and drop off, but my sister's away right now, so I'm like responsible for doing the pick up and drop off, and so I'm not used to it. And I basically pick her up from, like, she wants me to pick her up from behind the school. There's two entrances, one at the front, one is behind. And so anyways, I picked her up from behind the school, but I was like, so she got into the car, and as soon as she got into the car, I was like, why can't you just come to the front? Like, your year is allowed at the front. Like, it means I have to come all the way round. It means I have to, like do a like a detour, and then I have to pick you up from the front, etc., etc. And then she got a bit annoyed with me. She's 14, so she got a bit annoyed with me, like, oh my God, like, you just picked me up from school, and now you're just telling me, like, telling me to come to the front, and I don't like coming to the front, and da da da. And I just realized, hang on a minute, like, I didn't ask her how her day was. I didn't ask if she was okay. I just went straight into it. I didn't really have empathy of what she was feeling. It just made me realize that actually sometimes we don't think about what others are feeling and what they could be feeling. The last one, and I don't know how we're doing for time. Just tell me, what time is it right now? I can't see the clock, that's why.
10 to 9.
8:52.
Okay, 8:50. Okay, cool. We're on time, roughly. But I'll speed up a little bit. Sensitivity. Okay, that's the last S. Being sensitive. Now, our journey, when we move from that journey of being selfish, acting for yourself, to acting for others, like we mentioned, in the middle, when we think of others, we have to develop sensitivity. Being sensitive is one of the most important parts of good relationships. We often forget to be sensitive, and it's so important. Like that story I was mentioning. And you can think of a time where you were insensitive to someone. And often it's always, we realize it afterwards, isn't it? We realize once we've hurt someone, or they're upset, or they react, we think, oh, damn, like, I didn't actually think about this. But if we put it down to it, like, how can we become more sensitive to others? A is obviously like acting selflessly, but also acting in the mode of goodness. When we are situated in that mode of goodness, and what does that mean? What does that look like? By taking a step back, by thinking consciously, thinking things through, understanding what that person might be feeling, might be thinking. How can I sensitively approach this situation? How can I sensitively navigate this? And there's different ways that you can do this. Like, it could be asking somebody else, like, hey, I'm thinking of, sometimes we talk about having somebody that can guide you, somebody that loves you, that knows you, and that can help you. So, just even sometimes as simple as asking, say if you have one time to have a difficult conversation or say something to somebody else, then it could be just asking them, like, hey, this situation, and this person's made me really angry, or they've done this. But then, when you speak to somebody else, they can give you a perspective, and then you can decide, okay, how can I become and approach this situation more sensitively? And actually, when it's in the forefront of our mind, it's like, what is that? And I don't remember the whole like diametrics, but I'll just kind of give it as I remember it. It's like when you're unconsciously conscious, where you're not aware of what you're doing. So you're not aware you're being insensitive, right? You're just like, you're just going around and saying whatever you like and being however you like, and you're not aware of it. And no one's ever told you that, hey, like, you're being insensitive. And then the second stage is when you're insensitive, but actually you're starting to become aware of it. So you're actually trying to consciously, you're doing it, but you're actually consciously, you're aware of it. You're being insensitive, but you're aware that you're being insensitive. That's like the next stage. So, okay, like, oh, yes, I know I'm acting bad. I know I'm offending this person, or I know I'm saying that might upset this someone, but it's okay, or whatever. And then the next stage is when you're conscious about it and you're trying to do something about it, right? So you're aware of it, and then you're trying to do something about it. Where basically, and most of us are probably in this situation where we are trying to make that better connection or be more sensitive. We're aware of it and we're trying it. And the last stage is where we all want to get to, is when we're unconsciously sensitive about it, unconsciously conscious. So we naturally comes to us to be sensitive. It naturally comes to us to be more relatable and connected. In the Vedic times, it says, I think, I hope I get this right. It says a politician has a heart of a razor, but a tongue like butter. Words like butter, heart like razor. And a sadhu, a spiritualist, has a tongue of a razor, but heart of a butter. So yes, they might be harsh, but at the same time, they're sensitive, because they're telling you the truth. Like, they're telling you, okay, you know what? You're in this material world, whatever you're doing, actually, you're in illusion, you're actually navigating incorrectly, etc. But they're telling you with the most compassion, the most sensitivity, the most love. And the analogy I really like is it's like having like a surgeon, a surgeon who cuts someone. He doesn't just cut someone, he has a knife, right? He's responsible with the knife. But that surgeon doesn't just cut someone. What does he do? He invites the patient in. He makes them feel comfortable. He establishes that relationship. What does he do then? He preps them for the operation. He preps them for the surgery. And then in the middle, he actually performs the surgery. He actually goes through. He makes that cut. He removes whatever it is that it needs to be removed. He gives that feedback, we could say, like in that. And then he stitches the person up. He gives them painkillers. He gives them aftercare. The same is true when we're trying to be spiritualists, when we're trying to have relationships, whatever we're doing in life. When we're sensitive, we have to build that relationship if we want to give feedback or say something, and then we can navigate. And the same applies for everything we do in life. The more sensitive we are, the more conscious we are, and we can only become conscious when we have our other things in place, like our internal practices, our good diet, our good connection with our body, our good connection with our mind, good connection with our soul, our relationship with our soul. When we're practicing being selfless, when we're doing these things, we can move into a direction of being sensitive. So they were the 3 S's of good relationships: being having self-realization, selflessness, and sensitivity. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, that's the end. Do we have any questions from today, and anything you feel like I haven't covered? Yeah, you can write them on the chat, or just put your hand up and unmute. Maybe you can have a bit of a discussion on today's session.
Thanks for today, Raj. That was really good. It was very informative. It really helped, actually. It resonated with things like some relationships going on in university, not just me, like the group. And it helped, like, I was making notes from that, like, what can I do? Where's my part in this? I'm sort of sitting back, but it's like, where can I come in with where's my self-realization moment? Like, what am I doing? What's my part? But also like the sensitivity, and to come in, you know, can I be more selfless in this instead of sitting back in a selfish way? You know, like, how can I contribute? And it was good to, I've made some notes to reflect on. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Also, I was going to ask quickly, would you like me to put in the chat the details for the morning meditation?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, definitely.
I just thought some people asked. So, but
Yeah,
yes, thank
really.
you so much.
Thank you, and I'm glad you yeah, like related with it and feel that you can navigate it in some way or another. Yeah, thank you so much, and yeah, please join our morning meditation. It's a really good way of connecting with yourself in the morning. So yeah, thank you. I don't know if Trisha's on the call. Maybe you have any questions, or anybody else has any thing. Yes, with Jade.
Hello, thank you so much for the session. It was really, really good. And it's such a great topic. Yeah, I was just going to comment on the fact that I love that sensitive was in the middle of selfishness and selflessness, because I find myself to, in a sense, that I can be a bit of a people pleaser sometimes and be a bit too selfless in a way, or also let people walk over me. So I think it's so important to have the balance in between and not go too far either side. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to say. Thank you.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that, Jade, actually, and it was a point that I actually forgot to mention in the talk. When we are talking about being selfless, that doesn't mean that we allow other people to take advantage of us and sort of, the analogies, be a doormat for other people. Actually, the reality is, and maybe I can ask you guys this question, when they looked at what is the one quality that the most compassionate people had, can you guys guess what that quality was? There's one quality that they found that the people that were most compassionate had this one quality. Boundaries. Susan, amazing. You guys are so good. Boundaries. Boundaries was the quality that they had. We have to understand and appreciate that we have boundaries. We have things that we're okay with and things that we're not okay with. And when we set that boundary, when we set that expectation from the beginning, it actually symbolizes more compassion for the other person, because you're trying to protect yourself and protect the relationship that you're in. You know, it's actually putting more value into that relationship, because you don't want that relationship to be spoiled because you've murkied the boundaries or you've crossed each other's boundaries, where it gets to a point where it's not sustainable and you can't continue. So it's a really crucial thing that you mentioned, that we have to make sure that we have that, having good boundaries. And the second thing I wanted to also mention is when we're being kind, when we're being selfless, often we can have an expectation that I'm being kind and I want somebody to reciprocate my kindness. I want somebody to validate my kindness. I want them to acknowledge my kindness. But true selflessness means you're not asking for a response. You're not asking for a thank you. You're not asking for someone to gratify whatever it is you're doing. They are on their own journey. You know, everybody's a soul and they're on their own journey. They're on their own realization. And it doesn't matter when they reach that point. If we're going to really go for this and be truly selfless, then we have to remove that expectation of, you know, how somebody is going to react to my gesture or my selflessness, because then it's still not truly selflessness. It's not easy, but we just have to bear that in mind. And not expect anyone to react or respond any differently. And yeah, okay, so yeah, Kajal.
Oh,
you take one question. Oh, and then Kajal and then Louise. Yeah.
Hi, Raj. So when you were talking about not having the expectation of other people being as kind as we are, I think I oftentimes have this problem that I care about people to an extent that I worry if I've done anything wrong, or if I've hurt somebody. When I see, so I'm able to perceive even slight changes in behavior or like expression and stuff. um I don't know, I feel like I'm more perceptive than, so I keep finding myself judging myself, trying to see if I've done anything wrong. And I think that's adding a lot of, like, most of my stress every day comes from people. Feel guilty saying this, but then if you had any advice on how I can overcome this, it would be really helpful.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is you're kind of looking at people's reactions and emotions, and you're almost feeling like you're stepping on their toes or skating on ice, and judging how they're reacting and responding. Is that correct?
No, I mean, I'm judging myself because I care too much. I'm always worried that I will hurt somebody, and that's like adding a lot of stress. I'm like very aware of everyone's behavior towards me, and I don't want to like hurt anyone. So that causes stress because I'm constantly judging myself.
Yeah, so you're taking on that yeah, have I done something wrong? Have I not done something wrong? You're constantly thinking, and you're basically you're very perceptive of how other people are reacting and responding to you. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think I'm giving too much importance to people, to be honest.
Yeah. So thank you for that question, and it's a very nice question as well, and I think a lot of people might resonate with what you're saying. When we care a lot about people, our loved ones, we can all really feel like how are they feeling? How are they responding? How are they gonna perceive something that I'm doing? Am I doing something for them that's good or not good? Ultimately, we have to navigate a relationship in a healthy way, and like I was mentioning, that the relationship starts with the self. So first you have to identify, like when you're connecting with yourself and you're spending that quality time with yourself, yes, you're going to be more perceptible to other people, but also you become more detached from the ups and downs that people have, because ultimately you're not responsible for the other person's emotions. You can be you can react in a way and be sensitive, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that because you're selfless, you're sensitive, you're kind, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to respond in the way that you feel they respond, or they in a positive way, or they're not going to necessarily be happy all the time. Like, you have to still have that detachment of not feeling like you're responsible for that person's emotions. You're only responsible ultimately for your own emotions and how you act, and how you are navigating the world through your actions. And what can also happen is, by putting yourself in that mind, in that state, you're creating that, people feel it, they sense it as well. So the people around you will also sense that, okay, maybe she's feeling very sensitive towards me, she's feeling very like her mind is feeling very like on tiptoes towards me, and sometimes that can change the dynamics of a relationship as well. So I think it's really important that you try and become detached from the whatever it is, whatever reactions that they might have. And yes, it's good to have empathy, but you can't be completely responsible for everyone's emotions. And if you keep like burdening yourself with how everybody is reacting and responding, then you're never going to be able to make that that progress with yourself. So yeah, ultimately we're all on a journey. We're at different levels and different stages. Everybody is going through a different thing at a different time. We can just do our best to be sensitive and practice kindness, compassion. But at the same time, we have to be detached in another person's reaction, and that's also equally important. Does that help, Kajal? I'm not sure if that does that help,
Yeah.
or do you?
Yeah, it does help. I think I need to be more mindful and tell myself that it's okay, and my job ends at what I say and what I do, and I can't be worried about how they feel. Like you said, I can't take responsibility for how they feel. So I think it's more self-talk and making myself realize that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And you know, sometimes that sounds like that can sound insensitive to someone, like, you know, like, but I think you're coming at it from a place of care, you know. Sometimes, you know, you say, oh, I'm not responsible for somebody else's emotions, like it might sound like that, but actually you're coming at it from a point of care, like you're trying your best, and then they're responsible for that, their own.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Louise, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Raj. And that was, yeah, really brilliant. And I wanted to say about the boundaries you talked about. And is there advice, or could you run one of these workshops or something on boundaries? Yeah, is there advice in the Bhagavad-gita around things like boundaries? There, I know I need to set more, and I find it challenging to without when I haven't, and then to bring in new behaviors in relationships when you're changing your behaviors, and it's people aren't used to you being that way, and you want to put boundaries in.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, we can look at something on boundaries for sure. I'll just share a couple of points that might be helpful. I'll tell you a story actually. So we just moved house recently. Not recently, but like it was like 2 years ago. And I had a guy come and paint the house. And what I decided, there was two options. One was like a painter that's very professional, and one was a bit of a cowboy, but he was a bit cheaper, so I went for the cowboy. You know, I don't know why, I thought I'd save, you know, some money. And he was very much like, yeah, whatever, you know, like I'll do it, I'll do this, I'll do that, you know. So I thought, okay, fine, you know, sounds good. And then when he started painting, you know, like it was just a nightmare. Like he basically he brought his team. There was like paint on the wooden floor, you know. There was like you know, like he like put paint on the door, you know, like very like not proper, you know. And then as it came towards the end of the you know, the job and stuff, I, you know, went around with him, and we were discussing about what was right, what was not right, etc. And you know, as things were going on, he was kind of taking, I felt like he's taking me for a bit of a ride, you know. And I brought a friend with me he used to be a monk actually before, and then he came out of the manor. So he was a painter, like he did some painting on the side. So I brought him with me to say, oh, you know, you can come and show me, etc. And when I started going around with him, I started pointing out his mistakes and showing him, you know, like this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong, da da da. The painter started getting angry, you know, he started getting upset with me, started getting annoyed, he got frustrated, and he was a bit of a like cowboy guy as well. So, you know, it started escalating, situations started escalating in an unpleasant way. And anyway, so we kind of agreed anyways, and I said, look, you know, like just, you know, we just kind of said, okay, fine, I'll pay you this much, and I agreed to do this, this, and this. But it got into a heated argument, you know, it kind of exploded. And I definitely felt like I lost out. And what my friend was absorbed was he observed that situation, and I said, "Oh, that's why does this happen?" And he explained to me that the reason this happened, that it's all like kind of blew up in your face and became the way it was, is because you didn't set a proper boundary at the beginning. So you didn't have a contract with him. You didn't agree like what was the terms, what are the basis, what you were happy with, what he was going to do. And therefore, because you didn't set that boundary from the beginning, what happened is it blew up in your face. And he felt he was allowed to get away with whatever he did. And therefore he reacted in that way. He reacted aggressively, he reacted angrily. So my friend was trying to explain to me that the same applies to all of our relationships in our life. Like we have to be in that mode of goodness. So being in the, so there's different modes, right? Being in the mode of ignorance is where you don't set any boundaries and you just don't care. Being in the mode of passion is where you start, when you're starting a relationship, you're just like, it feels good, I'm just going to go with it. I'm not going to set any boundaries because it's a new friendship, it's a new relationship. It doesn't matter, we're getting on well. I don't want to say this, they might get upset, this. But the mode of goodness means you're taking a step back and you're starting things that are difficult at the beginning, but good later on. So that's what mode of goodness. Mode of passion is feels good now, painful later. But mode of goodness is difficult now, but rewarding later. So every time that we have that relationship, we have to have the difficult conversations in the beginning. So we have to start with, and it's not easy because it feels uncomfortable here, right? You don't want to upset someone. We feel like pleasing that person, right? We feel very like not sure like how they're going to take it. But sometimes that difficult pain that you go through at the beginning is actually gonna last better as you go on. And some people get a bit like sometimes even in spiritual relationships, they discuss that, like a lot of times when you fall in love with someone, you don't really think about it, you just kind of fall in love and it's amazing. And then what happens is like people fall in love, they connect, and then eventually the love wears off, and then you're just stuck with the reality, and then you just navigate through it. But actually in spiritual relationships, what they recommend is actually have the difficult conversations up front, have that hard conversation up front where, okay, like what is it I want for my life? What is my needs? Do I want children? Do I want live in a big house, etc., whatever it is. So you have that hard conversation at the beginning. Now, Louise, I don't know how you navigate it once you're in that relationship. Probably have to get some experts in to share that. Yeah, but what I know of it is you start it at the beginning, and if it is something that you're already in, then having that difficult conversation is important. And when we have difficult conversations, you can look at that analogy I gave about the surgeon. You prep the person before, you comfort them, you establish that relationship, you then have that difficult conversation, you say the things that you need to say, and then you give them the aftercare. So like that. But yeah, we can bring people in. Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Louise, or was that enough? Or
no, thank you, that's helpful. And yeah, good analogy. I've had that same situation too. Yeah decorated. But yeah, no, thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah, they say once bitten, twice shy, right? So you learn as you go along as well, but it's really important. I know we've gone over time. I do apologize and see some people have left already. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining today. Really grateful, and hopefully see you at Wisdom Talks next week with Keshav Swami. So hopefully you guys can join that in person at Covent Garden in Neal's Yard. Otherwise, yeah, wish you a blissful day. And the week after that, we've got poetry. We're going to be doing a poetry session. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting. And yeah, let other people know as well. Invite other people as well to come along. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.